All right, it's been a couple months, so it's time to give you some updated Dynasty running back rankings. We'll go through about our top 30. Do us a favor, we have a like goal of 150 likes on today's video.
Come on,
So
baby.
go ahead and hit that like button to show some love. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. And I want you to comment down below as we're getting into football preseason is happening. Who's your biggest riser at this very moment? Just got the news literally as we hit record that Dalvin Cook signed with the Jets. So we'll talk about that here in a second as well. He will be in today's video. But we will do 6 tiers, Badake, and we'll start at the very top. We're going to switch it up. We'll see what you guys like better, starting from the bottom or from the top. But let's start in tier 1. Hit me with what you got here in tier numero uno.
Numero uno, hit me with your best shot. The best Robinson there is, Brian Robinson.
Brian Robinson from the Washington Commanders. Step on up.
Come on, baby.
Okay, so Bijan Robinson won.
Robinson.
You know, I would say most people in the dynasty space are super comfortable with that. We know the draft capital that he's had. I mean, think about the guys in the NFL who are currently starters who have that draft capital. Really, just Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey. There's
exactly.
not another one, and they've had pretty damn good careers. So yeah, Bijan Robinson, generational prospect, RB1. I would agree. Who else have you got?
I have Bijan. I have Breece Hall, excuse me.
Same.
As my RB2 here, my tier 1. I know the ACL tears, the longevity. We play for Dynasty for more than 2, 3, 4 years at a time. He will be back in full form, in my personal opinion, in 2024. But you still draft him as a top tier running back for the future. So he's my RB2 in my Dynasty rankings.
Yeah, and I guess we should have a small little conversation here about Dalvin Cook. We won't talk too much into Dalvin, rather just what this means for Breece Hall in Dynasty. It's my personal opinion that I won't be changing my rankings as of now. It's a 1-year deal. If Dalvin Cook had signed a 2-3-year deal, completely different story, but a 1-year deal, and I would go out on a limb and say when Breece Hall is actually himself, when he's fully recovered, he is the better running back at this point of both of their careers. So ascending offense, good offense all around them. Yes, Dalvin Cook will be there. Hopefully that will keep them fresh. I mean, remember last year when Breece Hall wasn't the starter, he was still really good for fantasy, right? He was getting so many receptions when Michael Carter was labeled the starter. So I think there's room for both of those guys to succeed, and I'll still keep Breece at RB2 as well.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why he's here, my RB2 right now and for the future. My next running back in my tier 1, I have 2 more running backs in my tier 1. Not sure about you. I also have Jahmyr Gibbs in this tier. Another guy, top 12 draft capital, drafted to the Detroit Lions. A phenomenal, running between the tackles, but an even better, an elite pass catching back coming in here. I know David Montgomery's here, but I still believe you can see a top 15 finish, a top 12 finish from every single one of these guys outside of Breece Hall in this first year. So I guess Bijan and Jahmyr, the rookies, coming into 2023.
Yeah, I mean, and I personally, remember last year, guys, the RB1 in Dynasty changed almost every week. It was it was Ken Walker, it was Breece Hall, it was Christian McCaffrey, it was Saquon Barkley. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a scenario in which Jahmyr Gibbs ends up surpassing Breece Hall. Just because he's not injured, he'll be an important part of the offense from day one. We don't know what's going to happen with Breece. And if he's succeeding through the air like we think he can, anything's possible for him. And I'm assuming we have the same last player. I'm not sure. I'm all aboard Jahmyr Gibbs. I am someone who has been a big advocate of David Montgomery. I think he'll play a huge role in Detroit, but I think there's enough of the pie to go around for Gibbs and Monty to both succeed for fantasy. And Jahmyr Gibbs has a more exciting role because of what he can do through the air. Generational pass catcher. Speaking of generational pass catchers, how about Christian McCaffrey? He is the last running back in my tier 1.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where you stand. Would love to hear from you, but this is a guy who is in the perfect offense. You could not have placed him in a better offense. And originally the worries were, dang, there's so many mouths to feed. Deebo Samuel kind of plays a similar role. Well, what we learned last year was, that's no longer Deebo's role. That's the CMC role now. Okay, he's going to catch a bunch of passes. He's going to be used in the backfield. I mean, there's a chance, really, in this offense, if he stays healthy, he could go for 1,000 and 1,000. That's a legit opportunity for Christian McCaffrey in this offense. I feel so good about the weapons in San Francisco with Brock Purdy being the starter. I feel great about Kittle. Feel great about Ayuk, CMC, Debo. And he is 26, going to be 27, but still, the way he plays the game, I think he can play for at least 3 years and still be very, very good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on two different teams, and both of those different teams, he was still a top 5 running back on those respective teams at the time as well. So wherever he goes, the situation is better, a better offensive line as well with the weapons around him. Kind of like what Zach was alluding to, he is my RB4 in my tier 1.
Okay, so moving on to tier 2. I guess I'll ask you, who's your first running back in tier 2? Because mine changed recently.
Oh yeah, it definitely has. I did bring. Well, before I get into the other player, my first player in tier 2 is Saquon Barkley.
Same.
That's who I have.
So we are pretty on par here so far.
Yeah, and I try to keep it short with Saquon. He gets that the contract extension. I guess he signs that franchise tag. Wherever he goes next year, or even if he stays with the Giants, I still believe he's going to be successful. Top 5 running back this past year. Got a lot of work in the air as well, averaging 18.9 fantasy points per game. I think that easily continues, especially with Darren Waller and this offensive line getting better. So I have Saquon Barkley as my RB5 here.
Yeah, and the offense, you're right. Like, that's a big part of it. The offense should be better. There should be more efficiency. And I think the volume will stay the same as well for Saquon. But last year, 1,650 all-purpose yards. The dude had 76 targets. I was researching a video for the Giants on our redraft channel and realized that Saquon had the same amount of targets as the leading wide receiver on your team.
Yeah,
which I believe was Slayton. With Darren Waller coming in, we could still see Saquon Barkley as the second preferred receiving option on this team. The thing I love, so the next player I have would be Jonathan Taylor. The thing I love about Saquon Barkley is that there is communication with the team. They seem to be on the same page. We don't know if there'll be a long-term future, but we know that Saquon is playing this year. And we just don't know what's happening with Jonathan Taylor. He is very adamant about wanting a trade. And meanwhile, if he does stay, which Jim Irsay has been very persistent saying he's not going anywhere, if he does stay, what does his game look like with Anthony Richardson? Put Jonathan Taylor and Justin Fields on the same team last year. What would that have meant for Jonathan Taylor? I think there could be a dynamic duo, but there's also a scenario like we've seen with Lamar Jackson, like we've seen with Justin Fields, Kyler Murray. There's a scenario in which there's a lot of vultured touchdowns, red zone opportunities. So Jonathan Taylor, a lot of people probably have him over Saquon Barkley. At this very moment, like we always say, our rankings change. We have to stay fluid. But at this very moment, I would be taking Saquon over JT if I was in a dynasty startup, even though I don't really take running backs early.
You don't take running backs early. No, and I completely agree with you. I mean, I bought a video about 2.5 weeks ago before everything happened with Jonathan Taylor and the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, it's called Time to Sell High. He was my RB6. He was the RB3 in the community at that time. RB3 in the community. He's still my RB6 as of right now, and I agree. My concern at the time, before all this nonsense was happening, but now we had to take into account, my concern at the time was that I think Anthony Richardson was going to take a lot of opportunity away from Jonathan Taylor, and I think that still is the case, which running back comes into this offense. But Jonathan Taylor is still a good running back. We just need to know where he's going and if he is even going to play this year. So yes, he is my RB6 in this tier.
All right, to finish out this tier for me, we'll see what you're thinking if you're with me. I got Travis Etienne as my RB7 at the very moment. 1,400 all-purpose yards last year, and what I am calling his rookie season. I think a lot of people should call that his rookie season. Super efficient, over 5 yards per attempt. He was fantastic, and I think in this ascending offense, as much as people are worried about Tank Bigsby, I've just been buying Travis Etienne because I feel like it's been presenting a buy low opportunity that I didn't think would be there. I think Tank will have a role, but I don't think that will take away from Travis Etienne.
Right.
And the last running back I have here is Josh Jacobs. So outside of Etienne, a lot of question marks around the future of those, 3 running backs: Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon. I think the reason I feel so comfortable having Jacobs and JT and Saquon in this tier is regardless of their future, I don't view them as a Leonard Fournette, as a Zeke Elliott, as a Dalvin Cook at this point of their careers, where if they're available, there's not going to be a market for them. There will be a market for them, right? So if the teams don't decide to sign them long term, if Miles Sanders got the deal that he got in free agency, I'm confident they could also get that same deal. Let me know if you have your tier 2 structured any differently, though.
No, exactly the same. I think the biggest question mark is what's going to happen with Josh Jacobs. Apparently, we still haven't heard an update. I'm interested to see what's going to happen in the coming weeks when you do watch this video. But he can easily move up potentially if Josh Jacobs was at camp right now today and he's a starter, we have him over JT.
Probably.
Exactly. So like, maybe, I think that can easily change here coming soon. I guess like JT is going to go behind Travis Etienne and Josh Jacobs, just being more comfortable drafting. Hypothetically, if you have a startup draft in the next couple of weeks.
If Taylor Jacobs both play, I will have JT over Jacobs still. But yeah, if JT's still holding out and it's like about to be week 1, I will put Jacobs ahead if he's set to play. Yeah. I think something that goes under discussed about Jonathan Taylor, by the way, is yes, he's a young running back, but he had a ton of work in college. This is not someone who came into the NFL and was just a fresh leg spring chicken, coming out of the coop. Like, there was a lot of mileage on his body already from his Wisconsin days. I would highly encourage you guys to go look at that. Also, a reason why I'm slightly worried about the likes of a Najee Harris, which we'll talk about here in a second. But, as we say, news is always coming out. This part of the season, rankings are consistently changing. They are fluid as we find out more updates about players and who's going to be healthy, who's not, who's on the PUP, who signed a contract. If you want the most updated rankings from the best content creators, including ourselves, Flock Fantasy, Dynasty Domain, the guys from In-Game Fantasy Stock Exchange, then go ahead and sign up to the Flock Fantasy website with our code LAND. In the pinned comment, you'll find a direct sign up. Not only will you have rankings for one quarterback, but also Superflex, Best Ball, Redraft. And if you want an upper hand on your leagues, you got articles over there. If you sign up to the Mother Flocker tier, you're going to get a direct DM to us for advice. Hey, I had this trade just hit my inbox. What do you guys think about it? We'll give you some advice, tell you what we would do with your team, and DM us if you sign up. We'll be happy to get you all set up. I think it's, to me, I'm super proud of what we're able to offer over there collectively as a group. Okay, let's head into tier 3 here. Speaking of Najee Harris, he's not the first running back I have in tier 3. He'd be the second. I do have Tony Pollard. And, this is something that we discussed a long time ago in the offseason, Badake. I said that if Zeke doesn't come back to this team, which we now know he's officially not coming back to this team, he just signed with the Patriots, then Tony Pollard will be ahead of Najee Harris. That's how it's been because I've been under the assumption that he won't return to the team. So I know there is some risk here, but again, similar to Jonathan Taylor, when you look at Najee Harris's usage, he's not some young spring chicken. He's a little bit younger, but I mean, he's like a month younger than Josh Jacobs, for example. And Josh Jacobs feels like he's been in the league forever. I like Tony Pollard. I like Najee Harris. And to be honest, like, let me know if you disagree, Badake, but if I'm doing a futuristic build in Dynasty, I don't really feel like Najee Harris is a running back I can build around long term. I'm not suggesting that he's going to be done in a couple years, but to me, he's not like a Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not like a Breece Hall, Bijan, where it's like, oh, he's so young. He's been in the league. I feel like there's so much mileage there. I would not be comfortable drafting him and then competing in a couple years is what I'm trying to say. So I view both of these guys as win now running backs in builds, and I prefer Tony Pollard at this very moment.
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess there's a couple different options. I do have Tony over Najee right now. It is very difficult, and the only reason why I have him over Najee is kind of like you mentioned, is the mileage. I still believe Najee Harris can get a 2-year contract extension, maybe get a friendly 2-year extension with the Steelers. And what happens if Tony Pollard doesn't re-sign? I think my biggest question here, if you are building any type of team, is where is Tony Pollard going to go after the Cowboys? Because I think the chance of Najee technically staying with the Steelers is higher than Tony Pollard staying with the Cowboys. I could be wrong there. Maybe I'm reading that wrong, but that's how I feel right now in my gut. So I still have these guys both. We're still the same so far with Tony and Najee.
Little do we all know that the Steelers already have their Tony Pollard in the wings.
Jalen Warren, exactly. So I hear you. I hear you. Kidding. Like, there's definitely a pathway for Jalen Warren, but I just feel more confident in the long-term hypothetical of Najee
Sure.
Harris staying with the Steelers than Tony Pollard
I hear
staying
you.
with the Cowboys.
So just wanted to back up some of the things that we were saying. Najee Harris, 4 years, he was important to the Alabama Crimson Tide. 3 years, he was a starter. 638 attempts, just attempts, rushing attempts coming into the NFL. Jonathan Taylor was the offense in Wisconsin. He comes into the league with 926 rushing attempts, only from college. So just wanted to quickly give that a little bit of background for people, a little bit of context.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Who else have you got in this tier 3 then?
I have Kenneth Walker in this tier
I'm with you.
as well. I'll give my next 3. Kenneth Walker, Austin Eckler. I also have Nick Chubb in this tier as well.
This is weird. We normally disagree a ton. I think it's coming. I think the debate and the disagreement's coming, but
probably
we
will.
are on track right now, completely on track. Okay. I'm with you there. Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler. 2, again, if you're a win now team, like very few running backs that you would rather have on your team at this very moment. Especially with
Chubb.
how quick the turnover is for running backs.
Yeah, 100%. I have Nick Chubb ahead of Austin Eckler, by the way.
Okay.
1 year younger. He still has a longer contract technically. Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler could be going to a new team next year. Does he get the same amount of workload in that Chargers offense or in a new offense? We don't know.
Sure.
So I do have that. And obviously, Kenneth Walker, I think the biggest question mark here, what the hell is going to happen with, I guess, his predecessor in Zach Charbonnet? We're going to find out if he can stay healthy and what that looks like in the next coming weeks. But as of right now, he's still in my tier 3.
Okay, I have 2 running backs left in my tier 3. I think this is maybe where we might disagree. And this change only happened recently.
Okay.
So specifically Javonte Williams, that's been there for quite some time. I feel very comfortable with him moving forward. Young running back, love the talent. If you look at his missed forced tackle rate last year, it's ridiculous. It's like 30% of the attempts he had a missed tackle forced. And Jonathan Taylor led the league in missed tackles forced, but he was only about 19%. Javonte Williams with Sean Payton. I mean, Sean Payton has always utilized his running backs heavily in the passing game. Big fan of Javonte Williams here. And a small change for me, I have J.K. Dobbins as the last running back in this tier. And maybe this is me overreacting too much. I'm not sure. We will discuss. But my tier 4 would start with Ramondre Stevenson. And it's very close. And I think a lot of people might disagree with me here. I am not in any way or any form suggesting that Zeke Elliott is going to destroy Ramondre Stevenson. But what I have felt for a long time, and I've brought videos where I've showed you decades of backing on this, is that Bill Belichick just does not care about the running back position, does not care about signing people long term. He does not sign running backs long term. He typically drafts them. He brings in free agents. So some people might look at this as an overreaction to Zeke. No, I think Zeke is just the first example of this in Stevenson's pathway with the Patriots. I still think Stevenson's going to be great. I think he's going to be great through the air. That's where he was best last year. Zeke is probably going to get some goal line opportunities. He'll probably get some short yardage scenarios, maybe some first and second down work. I think it will impact Stevenson. I'm not saying he won't be good. I'm not saying he doesn't have a top 12 ceiling. He does. But to me, this is just the start of what I've been feeling, why I've been nervous about Stevenson, just slightly. Again, I'm only moving him down 1 ranking, 1 tier. It's not a huge drastic overreaction, but I feel better about the draft capital for J.K. Dobbins, the draft capital for Javonte Williams, the offenses that they are connected to, their potential to be with those teams long term versus the history of Bill Belichick not valuing running backs, finding some in the late rounds, finding some on the free agency pool. So to me, I would personally have J.K. Dobbins in tier 3 at the end and Ramondre at the beginning of my tier. I know some people are going to call me a clown. They're going to say I'm overreacting. But, you know, this has been that like eerie feeling that all of us have had. If we're honest with ourselves, even if you love Ramondre, we've all had this eerie feeling that, like, man, what's the future with the Patriots look like when he's not on that rookie deal? So that's where I currently stand.
No, I definitely get you. The only other person I do have in this tier is Ramondre Stevenson. Both Javonte and J.K. Dobbins are in my tier 4. I'm happy to keep it this way because I think there is, I guess the way I would rather have it personally, but we can have it for the sake of time, I would rather have all three of those guys in tier 4, but I'm happy
Sure.
either way. I really don't believe there's a
Well,
much
let's meet
qualm.
in the middle there and then just add Ramondre to this tier. I personally would no longer draft Ramondre over Javonte and over J.K. Dobbins if I was doing a dynasty startup. I personally would not. And again, it's not an overreaction to just Zeke this year, even though he will have a small impact. It's just this is what I've been feeling for a while.
No, I hear you. I'm not a huge. I just believe in Ramondre Stevenson. I think that's the best thing I can say. We saw what he did, top 7 running back, 210 attempts, got the work in the air. Yeah, the history is against Ramondre, but maybe he gets a contract extension. Maybe he doesn't, and then we'll have a new conversation when that time comes. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, into tier 4. This is where maybe I have him too high. This is where Miles Sanders is for me.
No, that is perfect. I mean, I have Miles Sanders as my first running back in tier 4.
Okay,
so
perfect. So we're on the same page there. I mean, Miles Sanders to me has the long-term security that you're looking for in let's say a low-end RB2, potential high-end RB2 on your fantasy team and your dynasty team. He's one of those ideal targets if you go running backs late in your dynasty startup drafts. Excuse me. And he is one of the few guys in the league who is set to have a workhorse role.
Exactly.
Chuba Hubbard being the only competition. It's almost a lock that if he's healthy, he'll see 250 touches in this offense. And Carolina had a good rushing offense last year, just not good through the air.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
With Miles Sanders here, just a little fun fact, he is going back with his running back head coach, going back where he was drafted to the Eagles in his rookie year, where he got over, I think it was 70 targets in the air. I think he caught 50 out of 70 targets. They want to get Miles Sanders the ball in the air in Carolina. I think that's why Miles Sanders is so high, because he is a good pass catching back, just wasn't utilized in that way in Philly. So I'm excited for Miles here.
Okay, so after Miles Sanders, let's just go on a little run here, and I'm curious to see where we would agree or disagree.
Okay.
This is where I would put, and honestly, can I just say, I feel like all the other running backs in my tier, I would be comfortable with you ordering them whatever way you want to. Genuinely, whatever way you want to order these next guys in this tier, I'm fine with. This is just how I currently see it. Joe Mixon, again, if you are a win now team, then you would value him here. If you're not trying to win right now, there's no point of Joe Mixon being on your team. This is where I would have Zach Charbonnet right behind him. I have been pretty consistent, Badake, you know this, throughout the offseason saying, I don't feel like Charbonnet and Ken Walker should be tiers apart, like multiple tiers apart. And I'm kind of sticking to that here again. They're only one tier apart in my rankings at this very moment. I love Zach Charbonnet as a workhorse running back in the NFL. Like, he profiles as that, even though the opportunity might not be there with Ken Walker.
Right.
DeAndre Swift, I would have next. A little bit concerned about Swift, to be honest. He's probably the one I feel maybe more shaky on than anyone else.
Okay.
In fact, I'd probably, put Dameon Pierce ahead of Swift now that I really think about it. But yeah, Dameon Pierce, DeAndre Swift, again, which way do you want to have these guys ranked? I think Swift is the better talent, but he has already been traded. He doesn't have a long-term deal. He's on a rookie contract. The team's been a 4th-round pick for him. So it's hard to really put too much stock into his future because we don't know what it holds. And then the last player in this tier for me would be Alexander Mattison. I know a lot of people are wavering on Mattison. He is my RB22 in Dynasty Football at this very moment. I might be convinced to take Mattison over DeAndre Swift, to be honest. Like, if someone sent me that offer and let's say I was able to get a 3rd and a 4th swap done, I would probably genuinely consider that. I said this on a redraft channel, Badake, but every analyst in the entire world that you love has been saying for multiple years, if Dalvin Cook goes down, Alexander Mattison is a league winner. Right. He's a league winner certified. And now that the Vikings have moved on from Dalvin Cook, they're like, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, if you look at the games where Alexander Mattison played without Dalvin Cook, he's averaging over 20 points per game. And his 17-game pace in those games would be like ridiculous numbers. I'm not saying he's going to meet those expectations, but I very easily, again, if health is there, could see him cracking 1,100 all-purpose yards and let's say 7 total touchdowns. I could easily see that happening this year. Not only a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal in Minnesota. So yeah, that's how my tier 4 looks at the moment.
Okay, so this is kind of where we see a little bit differently. My tier 4 is constructed a little bit different. I have Miles, J.K., Javonte Williams, Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon are my only running backs in my tier 4. My tier 5 is my
Okay.
biggest tier here.
Okay.
So I do have Alexander Madison down, DeAndre Swift down, and that's really it. But I'm happy to keep it like this just for time's sake and just have a little bit more conversations about the running backs in tier 5.
Okay, yeah. Sounds good, just for time's sake.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go through tier 5 then. Again, just for time's sake, this is where I would have Rashad White, who is going to get a ton of work this year. This is where I would have David Montgomery, who I mentioned earlier, I think is a big value in Dynasty right now. He will get a lot of opportunities on the ground. This team is not only going to funnel through Jahmyr Gibbs. They both will have big work. Derrick Henry, when does the cliff approach? We don't know, but as long as he's not hit the cliff, he will win people fantasy leagues. Cam Akers, this is where I would have him. And I think this is probably where we would disagree a lot. This is where I would have Devon Achane, Kendre Miller. I guess we'll have to have the conversation because you were worried for a long time Dalvin Cook was going to come to Miami. He's not in Miami. He's in New York. To me, Devon Achane was always going to be a gadget guy that the fantasy value would come through the air in PPR formats. So I'm pretty strongly holding in tier 5 Devon Achane, Kendre Miller, but I think you might disagree with me. Kendre Miller has a little bit of knee issue. We heard that he'll be out about a week and then he'll be back. I still think he's the future of this team. Even though it may not be instant, you might not be able to start him exactly this year.
Yeah. For me, Devon, is still in my tier 6. Even though Dalvin doesn't sign, I think he's still going against the grain. I think he still needs to jump the hurdles. And it sounds crazy in Raheem the Dream and Jeff Wilson. I know that sounds crazy.
How are you saying that with a straight face?
I am saying it with a straight face, and it's always been. It has to go perfectly to where like maybe Raheem is gonna miss a lot of time or Jeff Wilson miss a lot of time, which it definitely can, and then we'll have a new conversation. I don't think he's a running back I want to be drafting for the long haul, and I think that is my biggest thing here. Yeah, I don't want to bank on Devin for another 2 to 3 years. I'd rather take the chance. Yeah, I'd rather take the chance in a Kendre Miller, in a Derrick Henry for the 1 year, who maybe has the same amount of who can win you fantasy leagues in that 1 year if need be. But for me, Devin, if he doesn't get the workload in the air, then it's like, okay, do they draft another running back or do they just say, well, he's just a gadget guy, kind of like what you alluded to?
I just don't see why they would draft another running back like Devon Achane. Like I could see them drafting a compliment. But
the thing is,
people
I don't think
like me who have been in on Devon have never said that he will be a workhorse. It's always he will get work through the air and he will have a special role in a special offense that's perfect for him. But look, for the sake of time, I guess we agreed to disagree. I'd be happy to meet you because you said you have Swift down a tier. What if I meet you there? Bring Swift down and we'll keep Devon in tier 5 if that's okay.
The biggest argument that I would have here, like I'm happy to keep Swift there. Who I really want to move up in tier 5 is James Cook, who we haven't spoken about, because that's who I have in my
Let's
tier.
Do that then.
That's who I have in my tier 5. I honestly have him ahead of all those guys. I even have him ahead of Cam Akers and Derrick Henry.
Oh wow, okay.
Personally, so I'll
meet you in the middle there and put him ahead of.
I have him that high. I have him pretty high in James Cook. But yeah, other than that, I think we're pretty similar outside of Kendre and Devon. They're both in my tier 6.
Okay, and we had to kind of limit it. Today we're ranking about 32, 33 running backs. I just want to say that my tier 6 has 10 players. Okay, so we're not going to be able to talk about all 10 players, but I'll just tell you guys the first 4. James Cook would be in this tier for me. We would disagree there, but that's fine. I also have Aaron Jones. I have Dalvin Cook. I have Isaiah Pacheco and Rashawn Johnson. Those would be the first 4 in that tier, along with James Cook. Dalvin Cook, this is where I had him before the Jets signing.
Okay.
This is where he'll stay. I can see this getting ugly pretty quickly for Dalvin Cook. When a healthy Breece Hall is on the team, he will not be the preferred running back in that system.
No.
And then after this 1 year, it's not a good sign that you're signing a 1-year deal. Next year, is someone going to give you a multi-year contract? You're kind of already agreeing that you're in that phase of your career where you're signing 1-year deals with teams. So to me, I clearly prefer Aaron Jones. I definitely prefer Devon Achane, Kendre Miller. I prefer James Cook, even though I'm not as high on him as you. Cam Akers, Derrick Henry. I was trying to think, like, how high can I put him honestly, even if you draft him in a win now team, you don't even know if during the fantasy playoffs you're going to be able to start him with
that
confidence.
Window is,
Yeah,
exactly.
When Brees is healthy, so I don't think I can move Dalvin Cook up any more than where he is here.
Yeah, completely agree. It's really difficult to think of. Even in the second, it's so true. In the second half of the season, is Dalvin going to be playing? Is Isaiah Pacheco more valuable in the second half because Jet is injured or Clyde's injured? Right? We know the expectation is that Brees Hall is going to be back and ready, at least by midway of the season, and he is going to be getting a significant amount of workload, maybe 60 out of 40% workload that Dalvin is technically, or the 60% workload going into that second half of the season, which is significantly better than what Dalvin is expected to be getting with the leftovers. So I completely agree, especially in Dynasty. He is a flyer guy. He's like, you know what, I'll take it maybe because you have a Brees Hall and you have the quote-unquote handcuff. In a redraft perspective, completely different conversation. Let's have that conversation on the redraft channel. Make sure you go subscribe over there. But yeah, here I agree. You can't really move him up in a Dynasty perspective with that 1-year contract.
Yeah, I mean, man, if it was like Miami multiple years, that's different. But 1 year deal, you're already agreeing to that? That's tough long term.
What if it was Miami 1 year?
I still feel like that would be tough, personally.
It'd still be tough.
Because you're already agreeing that you're in that stage of your career. Like, yeah, all right, this is the market. I'm a 1 year guy now bouncing around. I just feel like that's the beginning of the end. But hey, guys, do us a favor. Drop a like to show some love. Again, if you want to see our full rankings, you know where to find those. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you very soon. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.